So you want to know how to think in Spanish and stop translating in your head. I had exactly the same issue when I began learning Spanish years ago, but through the tips and advice that I'm going to give you in this video, you're going to be able to overcome those issues. I know how frustrating it is for you when you want to speak, when you're trying to listen, everything is going through that translation process. I'm going to give you 2 great tips on how to overcome those issues of translating. But first of all, I want to talk about something that's preventing you from being able to think in Spanish. What many people do is they question why Spanish is different, and this is never going to do you any favours. What people try to do when they learn a new language, in this case Spanish, is they try to make it fit with English, and that can never work. They're 2 different languages. An example that you'll see a lot on this channel that I like to give is one of children and how they learn languages. And if you think, a child never questions the way we speak. A child has never said to its parents, "Mummy, Daddy, why is the word order like this? Why do we have masculine and feminine?" A child would never do that. And even bilingual children don't do this. So let's take, for example, a child that in the home speaks both English and Spanish. So the child would hear the parent that spoke English say, "a blue car," and then the parent that speaks Spanish would say, "a car blue." Now, if you said to that child, "What's the difference between those 2 sentences?" The child would probably give you a blank stare and they'd say they're exactly the same. Now, as adults, we know that they're different. They sound different, they're spelt differently, the word order is different. Children aren't aware of that. What the child pays attention to is the message. In both sentences, in English and Spanish, the message is exactly the same. When we speak Spanish, when we learn Spanish, we have to stop trying to make it fit with English. It's difficult because everything we learn in life, we relate it to what we already know, and that's no different in language learning. But we need to try and be as children and just listen to the message, because asking why will only ever prevent you from advancing, and it will always lead you to resorting to translating everything. And that's the thing that we want to stop, and that's what we're going to address next in this video. The 2 steps that you can take to stop translating and start thinking only in Spanish. First step is to get lots and lots of input. Again, just like children in their first years of life, everything is input. They're listening constantly, and we need to do exactly the same. So we can do that through things such as film and television, so Netflix. We can listen to things like the radio or podcasts. But the real game changer is reading. Reading will help you to start thinking in Spanish. I'm going to give you an example. Suppose I were to give to you a music CD, and I said to you, "I want you to learn all the lyrics on this CD, and I want you to be able to sing it to the melody, to the music." What would you do? How would you learn the words? Well, no doubt you would put it in the CD player and you would just play it over and over and over again. So why do you do it that way instead of sitting down studying with the music? So trying to memorize the lyrics and reading the music. Why don't you do it that way? It's because it's not really necessary. The part of our brain that's receptive to music and language does all the hard work for us. So why am I saying this? Well, with reading, we can do exactly the same. Through constant repetition, reading things that are comprehensible, things that we can understand in Spanish, we will begin to think in Spanish. Just like when you get a song stuck in your head and you can't get it out and you're thinking, oh, and it's going around over and over again, the same can happen in Spanish. This idea is known as comprehensible input, and the technique of reading to learn a language has been pioneered by a linguist called Krashen. He's been pioneering this idea since the 70s, And a video that I'm going to do next week on how to become fluent in Spanish is going to go more in depth on what Stephen teaches, and I'm going to give you my own tips and advice on how you can become more fluent. But for now, we'll keep it brief. I'll explain to you why reading is so effective. When we read something that we enjoy, and that really is important, don't ever read something that you wouldn't want to read in your native language. When we read over and over again, and it's comprehensible, and we see the same words and we see the same grammar structures over and over again, the part of our brain that is receptive to language learning, receptive to grammar, it joins all the dots. Now, you could study formally in the classic way of teacher, student, listening to the teacher all day long, virtually speaking, no Spanish. Then you get your homework and you have to do grammar drills and la 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 la. You can do it that way, but it's difficult, it's confusing, it's dull and it's boring. So people struggle with that. The great thing about reading is you learn Spanish by osmosis. So you get absorbed in the book and you get Spanish through purely just reading the book, through reading the material. Now, why this is so key to be able to think in Spanish and stop translating is that when you read a book as opposed to doing formal study, when you read, you acquire the language, you absorb it. And this is what Stephen has been going on about since the 70s, that it's no good learning a language, studying a language. Think, we never did that with our first language. We never sat down. A parent has never sat its child down and said, okay, today we're going to do past tense verbs, irregular verbs, stem changing verbs. It's never happened. So why do we do it with our second language? It's so effective because our brain will do all the hard work of joining, as I said, all the dots, all the grammar constructions. It will do all that for us. And we get so much repetition that what happens, what takes place, and this is the most important thing, we begin to feel the language. An example, if I were to say to you, I have saw it, I've saw it, you know that that's not right. It sounds awkward. You know it's wrong. But if I said to you, okay, you say it's wrong, tell me why. You probably couldn't. You know what's correct. You know I have seen it is correct. But you probably couldn't explain why. We can do the same thing in Spanish. Through reading, through getting lots and lots of repetition and seeing the same words, the same grammar structures over and over again in context, our brain begins to piece the puzzle together. And in that way, because it's natural, we begin automatically to think in the language. We stop translating and we feel the language so much more. Because when you get to a point when you're speaking and you get to that point where you need to put a verb in a particular tense, you'll know just what sounds right. I have saw it, I've seen it. You'll know because you'll feel it. And that is where we want to get to. And that is when you can get to that stage, that is when you'll start thinking in Spanish. And that translation process stops. Now, I appreciate that you're probably skeptical about this idea of reading in order to start thinking in Spanish. But give it a go. Find something that you enjoy, something that where you can lose yourself in the material. So that could be a novel, or it could just simply be a blog that you enjoy reading. Make sure that you lose yourself in the material, that is a tantalizing read. And trust me, your brain will do all the hard work for you. And seeing the same things over and over again, just like that music CD, just like we never sat down and studied the lyrics or the music. We just listened to it and our brain did all the hard work. you can do the same with learning Spanish and begin to think in Spanish. Give it a go. Now on this channel, I have a completely free Spanish course, and to accompany the course we have a series of short stories, and they really are interesting. They're not like normal reading material for language learners. I'll leave a link card at the end so that you can check that out. And also, if you want to learn Spanish in a very unique way, make sure to check out the course. It's completely different. It gets you speaking, understanding, forming full sentences from the very first lesson, and it's also great for those that have tried to learn Spanish but failed, maybe because they find it difficult because of the grammar, formal study. Give it a go. The link's at the end for you to try out. The last thing that I want to mention is output. Now, output is things like writing and speaking. Those are definitely important. We need to practice our speaking so that we can become fluent and we can get used to using the Spanish language. But output definitely always will come second to input. Just like the child listens, a child listens. We need to do the same. Most of our learning needs to be input. If you're interested in how you can find Spanish-speaking partners online to chat to, I'm thinking about making a video on that, on websites and apps that are useful for that. If that's something that you would be interested in, please leave a comment down below, and I'll make sure to make that. So, over to you then. What do you think? Do you think that purely through reading we can start to think in Spanish and stop that translation process? What have you done to stop translating and start thinking in Spanish? What have been your struggles? What do you find difficult when it comes to thinking? What do you do in order to stop translating? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, as of next month, I'm going to be starting a Q&A on the Spanish language. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. If this video has helped you out, I'd ask you for a favour. The best way that you can let me know, the simplest way for you, is to just give me a thumbs up, and that will let me know that you've enjoyed today's content. And also, don't forget to subscribe. I have new weekly videos, and they deal with the Spanish language, Hispanic culture, and language learning in general. So make sure to subscribe as well. If you want to take part in that Q&A, anything related to the Spanish language or again Hispanic culture, leave a comment below, and they will be included in next month's Q&A. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.